Thank you for marching.
Hey, we're going to be talking today about how rape culture impacts sex workers, and we're going to start out by telling you about a court case. In 2007, a 20-year-old sex worker in Philadelphia agreed to meet Dominique Grindaw for protected sex in exchange for money. After the session, he asked if she would have protected sex with one of his friends for more money, and she agreed. When she arrived at the friend's house, however, he threatened her with a gun and forced her to have sex with him, Grindaw, and 2 additional men. Often when sex workers report sexual violence to police tend to ignore, demean, or intimidate them. Sometimes police rape sex workers and are the instruments of violence against them. In spite of this history of structural violence, the sex worker had the courage to report the rape and file the case against her perpetrators in city court.
Yes, and then the less awesome part of that story. At a preliminary hearing, Judge Teresa Carr-Denny dismissed the rape and sexual assault charges, and instead charged the perpetrators with theft of services. When interviewed by the Philadelphia Daily News, Judge Carr-Denny said that this assault, quote, minimized true rape cases and demeans women who are really raped. This ruling, made by a local judge who will hold her elected office until 2019, erased the sex workers' consent and perpetuated the myth that sex workers can't be raped.
It is difficult for people to see sex workers as victims of sexual violence because of the sexual and illegal nature of our work. It is difficult for people to see sex workers as anything other than criminals. But sex work is real work. And sex workers are entitled to rights, boundaries, and the ability to consent just like any other worker. It is not the work itself that's inherently violent, but the conditions in which we work that create situations of violence. Criminalization and stigma harm sex workers directly. They force us to make choices that increase our risks. For instance, there are laws that criminalize practices that sex workers use to stay safe. If I refer a friend to a non-violent client who I've seen, I can be arrested for sex trafficking. But sex work is not the same as sex trafficking, and the difference is consent.
Thank you so much for all this feedback. It is amazing to be a proud sex worker in public, hearing people cheer for us. Thank you so much. Oh my goodness. In 2015, after consulting with hundreds of sex workers from around the world, Amnesty International released a lengthy report in support of sex worker rights. This means that for more than a year, this human rights organization has publicly recognized sex workers as laborers and supported full global decriminalization. Which reduces violence and allows us greater control over our own working conditions. As sex worker rights activists, we believe that the most powerful way to organize is to ally with other social justice movements, because we often come to sex work as members of already marginalized groups. Many of us identify as queer and trans, people of color, immigrants, undocumented or not, unhoused, substance users, veterans, and disabled folks, to name only a few of the many diverse identities and lived experiences we embody. For this reason, we stand in solidarity with anti-violence movements such as the March to End Rape Culture and the Movement for Black Lives. in addition to anyone who seeks to build a more just and equitable world. The reality is that sex workers, we're everywhere. We are your neighbors, your friends, your lovers, your comrades. If you think you've never met a sex worker, you're wrong. And if somehow, you truly haven't, there's no time like the present. We won't bite without cash and consent. Want to understand the difference between sex work and sex trafficking? Curious as to why we advocate decriminalization instead of legalization? Say hi! Aisha and I are more than happy to answer respectful questions.
Coming up on October 28th at Action Wellness from 1 to 3 p.m. We're going to be talking about the needs and experiences of sex workers in Philly, and we invite you all to come to that. Thank you so much.